So the Consumer Product Safety Commission, aka the federal government, just took our stove. So I'm sitting out here at the wood pile, taking you out to the wood pile. One of my subscribers tells me that. So I've told you in the past, the EPA is trying to ban wood stoves. What they've done is, I think around 2011, maybe 2015, I think it's 2015, regardless, they crunched down on wood stove manufacturers. They said they all have to meet a specific criteria. And they said that wood stoves could only put out so much particles per million out of your chimney. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the EPA is cracking down on CO2 emissions. Wood stoves are carbon neutral, and so they have a hard time arguing that point. A tree absorbs carbon its entire life, and then when you cut it down or it dies, it releases that carbon back into the atmosphere. So it's just a recycling. You plant a new tree and it absorbs that carbon back. Now, there are people in the comment section that will argue that when you burn the tree versus it dying and releasing that carbon, is it's releasing it all of a sudden instead of over a decade or so. Well, it doesn't matter. It's a recycle. It doesn't matter how fast it recycles or how fast it doesn't. However, there are groups out there who are trying to force the EPA to regulate the carbon. Now, just recently, there was a Senate bill that passed. It was a spending bill is what it was, a big one. In it, Senator from Maine put in there that firewood is carbon neutral. Well, the environmentalists said, oh, no, that's not carbon neutral. And so they're pushing the EPA to do whatever it is they want to do anyways. So it doesn't matter if Congress makes a law. The EPA can still do whatever they want. The people in my comment section will scream at me that the Supreme Court has just ruled that the EPA cannot make laws. That is up to Congress to make the law. Yet the EPA still regulating things. So if I go to court and the judge says I have to do something, community service or whatever it is I'm supposed to do, or I'm supposed to stop building a fence or whatever it is that I was told to stop, well, if I come back home and I continue doing what I had done in the past, the judge is going to issue a warrant for my arrest. Now, if a president or the government is told to stop by the Supreme Court, the only people who can stop them and have the president arrested or whatever is Congress. They impeach them, and then the Senate convicts. Well, we've had 4 impeachments. So they charge the president with a crime. Congress does. Well, each time the Senate has said that there is no conviction. I mean, one of them lied to Congress. That is illegal. You cannot lie to Congress. But the Senate did not convict that president for lying. So here we have a president just recently gave a rent moratorium, said you do not have to pay rent to your landlords. Well, the Supreme Court said that is unconstitutional. Of course they have to pay rent. Well, the president continued his moratorium. Nobody arrested him, nobody impeached him, nobody convicted him. So my point is, it doesn't matter that the Supreme Court said that EPA can't make laws because that's Congress's job. They're going to do it anyways. 3-letter organizations are out of control and there's nothing we can do to stop them. Here's the problem, is we, the people, elect people to make these laws. So lawmakers go up there and they're lazy. So what they did was they made these laws that said, we're going to let the EPA do whatever they want when it comes to regulating the Clean Water Act, for example. And so when the EPA decides, oh, we need more regulations on water, the EPA now is in charge of all water. On your land, if you have a pond, it's theirs. When it comes to wood stoves, each year the EPA makes the requirements even more strict. Every year. There's the cat. I know everybody likes seeing the cat. There she is. She just scared the tar out of me. She's having a good time right now. It's warm outside, so she's coming out and playing. She doesn't want to go inside. Each year, the wood stove manufacturers have to put out less parts per million into the environment. So my wood stove is just, 2 or 3 years old. It's not very old. It's 85% efficient, and it's already obsolete. So the manufacturer has discontinued the name brand. They've made a different name brand now, but they've actually discontinued Wood Pro. It's not a brand anymore. But now the wood stove may need to be 95%, whatever the new requirement is. So each year it's going to get more restrictive, more restrictive. Eventually they're going to say 0 ppm out of the wood stove chimney. Well, that may not be possible. So the senator from Maine said that wood is carbon neutral. But the EPA may make it so complicated that wood stove manufacturers can't compete. This is when I say the EPA is banning things, because some people say, well, the federal government is giving tax breaks on wood stoves if you go out and buy an EPA-approved wood stove. Yes, they're giving tax breaks, but they're making it so complicated that eventually it's not even going to be worth making a wood stove. If a person can't afford it, even with the tax break, they're not going to go buy it. They're going to buy something they can't afford. Of course, the EPA wants us all to go electric. So a while back, I was telling everybody, and I don't think anybody really heard me. I hear this YouTuber all the time, whatever happens in Europe happens in the United States, which I've never seen really happen. But what I do see is whatever happens in California happens in the United States. California, a while back, passed a law that said that you can no longer put gas burning cook stoves in your home. And they cited all kinds of studies and different things. And they said, just same thing they said about wood stoves is it causes asthma, which I failed to mention in this video, but they said wood stoves cause asthma. Not carbon emissions, asthma. And the people in my comment section will say, yeah, it caused my asthma. Well, I have asthma, or did have asthma. I'll tell you why I got asthma. It wasn't because of wood stove, which I grew up with. It wasn't because of natural gas. It was because the government regulations. Government regulations required that people seal up their houses so tight that they won't get ventilated. And then mold grows in the house, black mold, and it causes mold poisoning. I lived in an apartment that was sealed up real tight, met all the requirements of the government, and it got mold. And I got mold poisoning. The other thing the government did is they told me that there's a food pyramid that we have to eat. So you eat the requirements of the food pyramid, and it causes inflammation. Breads and wheats and grains and all this garbage they want us to eat, cereals. Well, that causes inflammation. Well, it caused my bronchial tube to swell up. You get asthma, and then you have to be on an inhaler, which is good for big pharma. So big pharma is really pushing all this junk that they're wanting you to eat. So I just started eating a carnivorous diet, and my asthma has pretty much went away. I mean, I really haven't had the effects of it anymore. So, no, I'm not a big fan of government. Now, I know there are people out there who are going to say, oh, no, government saves us all the time. Well, you can have that government. That's fine. Just leave me alone. Yet people don't seem to understand that. So, wood stoves cause asthma. Well, then California said that natural gas coming from your cook stove causes asthma. And they mentioned two types of gases, and I'm going to talk about these in a bit. So, they said that you cannot put gas-burning stoves in new homes. Now, I think Oregon followed along with this. Don't quote me, but there's a state on the east side, I think it's New Jersey, but I'm not sure. Well, now the government the Supreme Court just said these lettered organizations can't make laws, just made a law, or thinking about making a law. It's going to pass. They're going to do it. It's already a done deal. They're going out and getting public opinion, but you know where they're going to public opinion at? Not states like Missouri. They're going over to California and New York. They'll get public opinion from those guys, and they'll all say, oh yeah, we need to do this. So I said earlier in the video that the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which I didn't know was a government organization, is going to outlaw gas burning cook stoves. So what they said was 35% of homes in America have a gas stove. I grew up with a gas stove. Now, granted, I have asthma, but I didn't get asthma until I was well into my 40s. And I didn't get asthma until there was mold involved, so I don't think it had anything to do with wood stoves or gas stoves. Now, what they did say is 12.5% of the people who have asthma, think about that, just a little bit over 10%. So let's say there's 100 people who have asthma, only 10 of them got asthma from gas stoves. Now, they're saying that the pollutants from a stove is just as bad as secondhand smoke, which surprised me, which made me do a little bit of research on my own. So what they said was the two gases that are being produced is nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide. Well, wait a minute, that made me scratch my head. Carbon monoxide. Now, carbon monoxide is very poisonous. I agree with that. We have 2 carbon monoxide detectors in our house. We took them from our camper. When we were living in our camper, we had to heat with our cook stove, the little camping stove. And it was pretty dangerous. But we kept the carbon monoxide detectors on. We had 2 of them, one at the foot of the bed, one at the head of the bed. If it went off, then we opened up everything. Well, since we've been in the house, we have not had them go off once. We've replaced the batteries. Now, you got to replace carbon monoxide detectors every 10 years. If you're in a house that has natural gas appliances, of course you have carbon monoxide detectors. Most people have electric carbon monoxide detectors. They're already hooked up into your house. Ours is battery operated, so we have to change out the batteries. So I Googled, does carbon monoxide cause asthma? If you are poisoned by it, which means you had a significant amount, increases your chances of respiratory disease up to 65%. So you have to have been poisoned, which means the levels of carbon monoxide would have set off the carbon monoxide detector. You got headaches, flu-like symptoms, may have passed out, close to death. So we know that natural gas cook stoves don't put out that kind of carbon monoxide. We know it doesn't. Otherwise, carbon monoxide detectors would be going off all across the planet and they'd be already taking them out of the houses. Now remember, we also have furnaces that runs off natural gas. We have water heaters that run off natural gas. But every house I've ever been in that had a natural gas stove has a hood on top of it, has a fan, sucks all that stuff out of the house. So I suspect that that takes out the carbon monoxide. Now the other thing I looked up was nitrogen dioxide, which is supposed to be the other thing that causes asthma according to this study. Nitrogen dioxide can irritate the nose and throat and lungs. It can irritate it. But I read a study and it said there is no evidence that nitrogen dioxide causes respiratory disease. So the two things that they said are going to cause you to have asthma don't cause respiratory disease. This is a hoax, and this is why I don't like these three-letter organizations, or in this case, the Consumer Product Safety Commission. We have no way to fight this. We can't vote them out of office. We can't object. We can't even go to public meetings because they're going to hold it in states that are going to agree with them. They're not going to hold it in Missouri. 35% of the homes who have these stoves are going to have to switch over to electric. Now here's the thing, is there are senators that said that minority groups are the ones most affected by this. Now, in the study, I did not read anything about minority groups being more affected by this than anybody else, but that's what the senators said. So they wanted to get this done right away. What I find very interesting is a lot of homes that are in poor areas are not capable of running 220. They don't have a 200 amp meter base. They don't have a 200 amp breaker box. It's usually 100 amp. This place over here, this meter base that I have, is 100 amp. So if it's an older home that they live in and they have these gas stoves, they're going to have to upgrade their electric into their houses, which is not cheap. I've done it before. Had a 100 amp and I had to replace the meter base and the breaker box and rewire the whole house. It cost a lot of money. So we're asking minority groups who are most affected by this to completely rewire their homes. So if you click this up next box, take to you a video where I was showing you that we had some ventilation issues in our attic. So I hope I can inspire you to live off grid. So yeah, to deal with this mess. Thanks for watching.